Hopefully it's working now. There we go. Technology's giving me a hard time this morning. I'm gonna light some sage. Good morning. How's it going? Good morning, Phoenix. Hi, Wade. Good morning. Hi, Janet. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Getting the sage going. We need it. The world's going crazy. We need all the sage. Smoking myself out here this morning. Good morning. How's it going? TGIF indeed, Jessica. How was your week, everybody? Did everybody have a good week? How's everything been going? Nice to see everyone. Been dealing with a bit of chaos the last couple days. Lots of bookings, lots of all kinds of drama in the collective, all kinds of confusion. The beasties are pulling their own shit as normal. It's been one thing after another this week. So I'm very glad to be going on my vacation, my much needed vacation, leaving this weekend. So this will be my last normal scheduled podcast for at least 3 weeks. I'll be back, I believe, is it the 9th or the 10th of February? Taking long breaks like that once a year is what allows me to keep going for the rest of the year. Otherwise, I probably would have burned out with this podcast a long time ago, because I've been doing this for now 2 years. Almost 2 years. So doing this podcast every day for 2 years does kind of get you down after a while. It's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility. Always having to look for guests and everything too. Always having to come up with questions and being under the public spotlight all the time. For an introvert, I'm still astonished that I'm doing it 2 years later. And I think the main reason I'm doing so well is because you guys kind of help me to stay sane in all of this. It's not easy to do every day, holding space for the collective. So I'm very excited about my break, because it means that I'll probably be very much more refreshed and excited and happy to do the podcast when I get back, rather than it feeling like a chore. Because it does. Anything that you do every single day, even if you love it, does eventually start to feel like a chore. So taking a break is very helpful in that regard. And to those of you who are still hanging out with me after 2 years, looking at you, Jess and Sarah, and many others, Amy, who've been hanging out with me almost every day for 2 years. I hope you guys know how loved you are. Oh, you saw the movie The Island we were talking about, Erica. Interesting, huh? Oh, thank you, Janet. So yes, I will be spending some time in the bush, although I must say my timing has not been the best. I don't know who's been paying, if you guys have been paying attention to what's happening in Kruger Park, but Kruger Park is flooded right now. It is underwater, and that's where I'm heading. So I guess, this is the time for Earth to be cleansing and purging and releasing stuff. Yes, lots of floods. But fingers crossed everything will be all right. We'll do some clearings in the area and help out the animals, and donate some money to the local charities that are working overtime right now, like Mahalo Holo and a few others, trying to save animals that are caught in the floods. So it's going to be an interesting trip to see what happens. Isn't it strange that Australia is going through similar things? Where in the north of Australia, you're getting really bad floods, and in the south, you're getting fire, because that's the same thing that's happening in South Africa right now. The garden route's on fire and Kruger's underwater. So I can feel the earth is definitely changing. Have you guys noticed that there seems to be a lot more floods and fire recently? And it's hard to tell whether or not that's man-made through all their weird technology that they have, or if there's something happening with Gaia. And what is CERN up to is a good question, Jessica. CERN is one of the biggest issues with why we're having problems with water and all that. They've done this a few times where they can open portals and just have a deluge come through. Just a deluge of water just comes right through the portals. They did that in, I think it was Tibet not too long ago. They washed away an entire town. They did it in the Carolinas. So strange weather, I think, is going to become more normal as things start ramping up, not just energetically, but as the cabal starts to feel like they're exactly. It's all like 50-50 possibilities at this point. Jessica said Gaia versus cabal. Yep. So it could be both. It could be Gaia's cleansing. It could be the government's messing around with technology they shouldn't be. So who knows? We're still living in Atlantis, my theory, Christine said. Yes. This is just, they keep moving the colonies around, but it's not much different, is it? Daniel Jackson said they washed away my hometown. There's been a lot of that, and I think that there's going to be more in the future as things ramp up. But have you guys been noticing the Schumann, too, has been going off the charts the last couple days? Anybody been paying attention to the Schumann? I'm loading it right now to see if anything interesting is happening. So it looks kind of quiet at top, but if you look to the spikes, there's a lot going on with the Schumann, too. But with the magnetic storms, too, we've also been getting some activity. So we'll just see how things are going to start ramping up energetically as things move on throughout the year. But the soul guides have already said this is going to be a huge year for us in regards to changes, government changes, political wise, but then also energetically. There's going to be a lot going on with Gaia. They're saying just now in the Kruger that this is worse than the 2000 floods. There were really bad floods in 2000. In fact, people were talking about them. Every time I went around in the bush, they would still be talking about it 25 years later. And yet it's actually gone past that. It's worse than that. So just reading through the comments. Looking forward to it as well, Alicia. Just praying the volcanoes around here don't start acting up. So volcanoes, I think, are less likely to be going off, but then you never know. Anybody else have anything they wanted to discuss today? Because I didn't really plan anything. This is just kind of a hangout chat today. Yes, Brittany says there's a lot of cracks forming, like in the ground splitting in Africa. Yes, they're saying that Africa is still splitting. That there's giant cracks that are forming throughout the middle of Africa, like it's going to split. Maybe it is. Who knows? Probably not in our lifetime. But then again, big changes on Earth can happen overnight. Somebody said, Laura, I need help. I'm being harassed by a lot of witches, and every night my arms and fingers swell during sleep, and it leaves about 5 minutes after waking up. What is happening? I have no idea. It could have been, this is the thing. A lot of times, and this is something that I do too, that whenever something happens, my first possible scenario goes straight to spirituality. Like if I get a headache, it's not like, oh, maybe you didn't drink enough water today. For me, it's like, okay, I'm under attack. And part of the reason for that is because I'm trained now to notice these things, but at the same time, I also disavow a lot of stuff that I realize. And it's funny, my guides will call me out on it. I'll be like, "Why do I have a headache?" And they'll be like, "Because you haven't drank enough water today." And I'm like, "Oh, I was expecting something else." So, one of the first things that we should do, especially in regards to pain in the body, is to look and make sure that every need that we are being met. Did you get enough sleep? Have you been drinking enough water? Is your vibration low? We have been denying ourselves what we need for a very long time. Most people put their own needs last, their own health needs, their dietary needs. People put themselves last all the time. I'm guilty of it too. I put you guys ahead of myself. I put my son ahead of myself, which is pretty normal, but that's actually what they say you're not supposed to be doing. Everybody's supposed to put their own masks on first, right? Because if you're not in good condition, if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to take care of someone else? So that's why people are always saying you need to put your own needs first, even among the needs of your own children. Because if you're exhausted and you're not in your peak performance, how are you going to be a good parent? So there could be a lot of things that could be going wrong. But anytime there's something physical, the first thing we do is jump straight into what could be causing it spiritually, and it's not always the case. It could be parasites. It could be lack of hydration. It could be all kinds of things. People simply do not drink enough water. Do you know how many times people are like, they book a psychic surgery with me? There's no, they think that there's some kind of an implant that's causing the problems. And I say, okay, well, what's the major vulnerability here in regards to their health? And you know what the guides tell me? 9 times out of 10, they're not taking good care of themselves. People spend hundreds of dollars getting a clearing and getting a psychic surgery. And sometimes they really do need the psychic surgery. Sometimes they really have been dealing with implants for a long time. Sometimes they're dealing with blockages or deeply rooted parasites. We found a centipede in somebody's brain the other day. That is definitely worthy of getting psychic surgery. Do you know how many people actually get those, though, that actually need them? 20%. The other 80% are simply not feeling well because they're not taking good care of themselves. They're either extremely stressed all the time. They've been in fight or flight mode for months, if not years. There are some people that have not been out of fight or flight mode since childhood. So whenever I look at when we're going through the psychic surgery, we look and see how's the nervous system? How is their nervous system reacting to all of this, right? So what happens to the nervous system? The nervous system starts overworking, and this starts draining all the other systems of the body. The endocrine system will start to fail. The cardiovascular, your heart system will start to fail. All of these things start getting worse. And then we wonder why. Then it's all stress. It's all poor diet, stress, and lack of rest. Those are the 3 major causes for all health and illness problems that get worse and worse and worse over time. And yet people come to me thinking, okay, well, there's an implant that's causing this. There's an entity causing this. Maybe I've got a curse that's causing this. And then I go in and they're like, oh, they haven't been hydrated in years. They haven't drank enough water ever in their entire life. Another person was like, well, their high stress levels have depleted all of their minerals, because if your body is powered on minerals and vitamins and you have been burning yourself out, you've used up all the vitamins and minerals from your diet. You burned them all out. And so if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not eating adequately, your body runs out of fuel. It's not just about food. It needs nutrients. It needs the vitamins and the minerals. And if you deny your body that, then yeah, over time it's going to get worse, and it's going to get depleted, and you're going to get exhausted, and then you're going to assume it's some kind of a beastie. And it happens all the time. Literally every day I do psychic surgeries. Somebody just said, can malnutrition send you crazy? Yes, big time. B12, just one thing, okay? Just one thing, right? That most people don't have B12. If you don't have B12 in your system, if your body has been depleted of B12, you can literally exhibit signs of psychosis. There's a couple people that had leaky gut, where they were like, I don't know what's going on. She's picking up entities so easily. I go in, there's no entities. And I'm like, what's going on here? How come there's no entities? And they say, well, it's not the entities that are causing the psychosis. And I say, okay, well, is it thought forms? And they say, well, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is thought forms that create psychosis. And sometimes I say, is it the thought forms? And they say, no, I literally had one person that was dealing with psychosis because they're dealing with leaky gut. For those who don't understand, leaky gut is when parasites can get into other areas of your body where they wouldn't normally. So parasites in the body can also cause problems with mental health, can make your mental health start to suffer. If you're not getting rid of the parasites, if you have a whole lot of parasites in here, that can mess with here. And people don't even realize that either. So studying mental health from different perspectives, I mean, most of the time when people study mental health, they're studying it from a textbook or they're studying it from a professor. And I'm studying it from the perspective of tuning into people's, theory. Well, it's not me, it's the soul guides that are doing it. But from what the soul guides can see and how they explain things. So there's all kinds of things that can lead to psychosis. There's all kinds of things that can lead to physical illness. There's all kinds of things that can lead to, like I said, hypertension and other things in the body. But most of the time, when you have prolonged issues, it's not just entities. Fasting can help. I think that parasite cleanses are one of the most important things that you can do for your body. Like black seed oil, oregano oil. Oregano oil is one of the most foul tasting things on the planet, but I imagine the beasties also think so. So there's all kinds of issues that we blame on beasties when in reality, most of it is just because we're not taking good care of ourselves. I like what Bradley just said. Good morning, Bradley. Bradley says, this is the importance of meditation, to sit with yourself and learn your own energy. When you know yourself, you can tell when something isn't right within yourself. The guides constantly tell us to meditate more. Yes. Calling in your own energy, calling your energy back to you every day. Even before you call in your soul guides and ask them for protection, call in your own energy every day. Sit with your own energy, feel your own energy, and then on days when you're feeling off, you'll recognize that it's not just your own energy that you're feeling. Oh man, I'm just laughing at how oregano oil tastes. Oregano oil is one of the most foul things that I've ever tasted. It makes ayahuasca taste good. Okay? To put it into perspective. Oregano oil is so foul, even ayahuasca tastes good after you try it. Horrible, horrible tasting stuff. But apparently the parasites also think so because it kills parasites very quickly. You guys are busting out some heavy questions today. Some of these I can't even answer. I am not touching that question on Facebook, getting myself restricted. Nope. Somebody asked about any talk about rescues for the Texas Hill Country floods. There are whole towns that have been wiped out in the last year. Whole towns. Thousands of people were killed in Nepal. Was it Tibet or Nepal not too long ago? There's flooding all over this planet. There have been floods that have been happening. We crossed over, what was it, a few million people during the tsunami that happened not too long ago. Just added to the list of all the things in the entire world that we have to clear. I have so many people that are like, did you clear this yet? Did you clear that yet? And I'm like, there's a whole planet we have to clear. I mean, no, I didn't get a chance to get everything. I would love to. There is a lot that we need to work on, and choosing what to clear and when is one of the more challenging aspects of all this. I'm sorry to hear that you've been dealing with that, Melissa. One of the most disturbing things that we find in our work is how much the Greys are messing with children. It's absolutely despicable. In fact, they're doing it a lot more. We've been noticing a lot more children. People are booking a lot more clearings for children recently. And if you guys remember, about a year or so ago, I said that children were the only ones that we find naturally sovereign. Adults are almost never sovereign. In fact, I think maybe I could check 1,000 adults and I'd find one sovereign adult out of 1,000. That's how rare they are. Adults are almost never sovereign. People wonder why. Well, your thought forms can make you not sovereign. Your even level ones can make you not sovereign. Earthbounds make you not sovereign. Everybody's got at least one earthbound on them generally. And that is enough to deny sovereignty because you have an outside influence that's still kind of persuading you in whatever way that's going to be. So you get all kinds of that. I mean, children are normally the ones who are most sovereign, though, because their vibration is naturally higher. Well, this is what they do. They go after the children now. It could be in school. It could be at some kind of a playground. It could be at a hospital. It could be at their wellness visit. At some point, that's what they do. They come in and they mess with the kids. How do we protect our kids? By keeping an eye on red flags. If children are having really weird dreams, if they're getting upset over things that they aren't really understanding, like if let's say their dream state, or if they're seeing something in their bedroom at night, or if they have pain that nobody can really source, if there's any issues. We had a child very recently that was exhibiting some health issues. Thankfully, their mother is very holistically minded. And the mother went and talked to some holistic doctors and found out that there was some behavioral stuff that just didn't seem right. So sure enough, we check and there were implants causing all kinds of behavioral issues. There was no explanation for why they were acting so neurodivergent. And so we go and look, and sure enough, there were implants that were planted there since birth. So somebody asked, how does AI attach to people? To your etheric field. You have electromagnetic energy that sits around you at all times. That is what is being messed with. So your etheric field picks up AI all the time. Cherie said, and having an unwell child affects everyone in the household. Yes, so it lowers the vibration of everybody in the house, making everybody else in the house more susceptible as well. So most children that are dealing with these things are not going to have memory as to what they're dealing with. They're not going to remember being abducted or experimented on, but they will start exhibiting signs of fear, trauma, PTSD. Things like this are not normal. Children should not be having PTSD with nothing happening to them. Nothing, you know what I mean, apparent anyway. Someone says, what do you mean by an AI attachment? I mean, AI, artificial intelligence, attaches to everything. It's in your phone. It's in your computer. It's in the airwaves that are floating around us. It's in your etheric field. If you look at your reports and it says all dark patches, parasites, and AI have been cleared, we're not just talking about clearing AI from your phone. We're talking about clearing AI from even your etheric field. We're even finding AI entities. We had a guy that had an AI octopus on him not too long ago. And I'm like, an AI octopus? And they said, yeah, it's an AI, it's an artificial intelligence entity. And I'm like, holy shit, imagine that. Imagine how many people are dealing with things that they don't even know. There's no real explanation as to what they're dealing with. People don't really even understand what it is. Where can we learn more about our etheric fields? Barbara Brennan's books. Barbara Ann Brennan. I'll write her name down. Barbara Ann Brennan. That's her name. Barbara Ann Brennan. Look up her books. All of them. They're amazing. If I had one of them next to me right now, I would show you how amazing it is. You'll recognize some of the artwork from the books. If you want to learn about etheric fields, Hands of Light is the first one I would get. Hands of Light. There's also, what were the other ones? I forget the name of the other one. So we got Healing Hands of Light. There's Core Light Healing. And then there was Light Emerging. I recommend all three: Hands of Light, Light Emerging, and Core Light Healing. All of them are good. Phenomenal books. And they go very much into the chakras, into how energy transfers. It's one of the best books you can get. Every podcast, I get people commenting underneath that they need help, but I can't help you while I'm on the podcast. So if you want help from us, you're going to have to message me privately and book a clearing. If you book a clearing, I will put a rush on it and have a look if you feel it's a true emergency. But keep in mind that I have 200. How many pending clients do I have right now? I'm just curious. Let's see. I'm just curious how many I have here. 201 pending records right now. So we are getting closer. We were over 300 records. So for some of you who are waiting a little bit longer than 4 weeks, my apologies for that. But we had a couple days where we got more than 50 bookings in one day. And it's taken us 2 weeks to get through 1 day's worth of bookings. So yes, we go through through your higher self. We get permission from the higher self to do clearings. In fact, I've only ever had the higher self tell us no once. We've done over 7,000 clearings. We've only had the higher self say no once. And it wasn't even a no. It was a not yet. And like 3 days later, I asked if I could do it. And they said, yeah, you can do it. And I said, well, how come I couldn't do it 3 days ago? And they said, because she had to go somewhere very dark and it would have been a waste. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's the only reason why the higher self has ever even only just told me no once. And it wasn't even a no. It was a not yet. So this is why I say, like, in almost every circumstance, these clearings do help people. It's just that sometimes they don't help as much as we would like to. Because if you're getting a clearing for somebody and they don't know the clearing has happened, they don't know the aftercare. They don't know that that they have a new clean slate here. So they have no idea. So if you don't tell people that they got a clearing, then chances are they're not going to continue with the aftercare that's going to keep them sovereign. So it might help them. It might help improve their mood. It might help them with getting rid of an addiction. But no, it's not one of those things that it just cures all of your problems and makes all of your problems go away. In fact, if you don't do the aftercare, generally the same problems come back. Do we do healing in our dreams? Do you ask for healing in your dreams? If you don't ask, you don't get. This is the number one most important thing that I have to teach you guys, is that if you're not asking, you're not getting. So are you saying before you go to bed every night, hey, will you take me to the healing place tonight so I can heal? Or are you just making an assumption that you are healing at night? Because if you're not asking, you're not getting. Then no. Nope, you have to ask every night. This is the biggest problem with people with their soul guides, is nobody asks. Nobody asks for help. And they're like, well, I had a client the other day that was like, I have a gatekeeper, but they're not doing their job. And I asked the guides, I said, how come the gatekeeper isn't doing his job? And they said, she has never once asked us to protect her. Not once. And I'm like, so gatekeeper, how come you're not doing your job? And he's like, well, she's literally never hired me to do it. She's never asked. They're not allowed to help if you don't ask. So people, a lot of times they're like, well, my gatekeeper sucks. He's not doing his job. And the gatekeeper's like, you're the one that's not talking to me. You're the one that's ignoring me and pretending like I don't exist. And then you expect me to do everything? This happens with a lot of clients. And then a couple people will be like, well, I felt good for a couple days. And then can you recheck me? And then I go back and I check them and I say, well, they picked up new stuff. And I said, well, that explains why they felt good for a few days. But after a couple days, they didn't. So then I say to the guys, have they been doing any form of psychic protection over the last week? None. Zero. And I'm like, ah, shit. Okay, well, now I'm going to have to put this in the aftercare. And say, remember how last week I told you to do that psychic protection thing that you're not doing? Well, you better start doing it. Because if you don't do it, you're literally making yourself vulnerable. You may as well be walking around naked. How good would you feel walking around naked outside? Would you feel good? I mean, if you lived in a home like a nudist colony, I imagine you wouldn't care. Being in a nudist colony, you're like, yeah, it's normal to walk around naked, right? Well, if you're not doing psychic protection every morning before you go out, you are walking around naked. Most people would feel very uncomfortable doing so. But most people walk around naked not even knowing they're doing it. So it's hard to protect people who don't even want to, do that, take that initiative for themselves. So do you ask every morning? Yes, every single morning before you even get out of bed, you ask your soul guides, please protect me. Please make sure that I stay sovereign throughout my day. Every single night before you go to bed, every single night, same thing. You do your grounding, you do your psychic protection, you visualize your golden bubbles or your gold pyramid or your invisibility cloak or whatever it is. You put it on every single night before you go to bed, and then you ask your gatekeeper to protect your dream state. Every night you do the psychic protection and you ask. Somebody said, what's the difference between a gatekeeper and a guide? There is no difference. It's just a very specific guide. It's your bouncer. Your gatekeeper is your bouncer. That's the one who doesn't deal with your, they don't really like coach you. They don't really like kind of guide you in life. Their job is not to keep you on track like your other guides are. Their job is literally just to keep you alive. Their job is to keep you alive, period. And sometimes your gatekeeper will be pushed out and an entity will come in and take over their place if you're not careful. You cleared a reptilian imposter guide. It worked, but I think it came back as my head was buzzing out a few nights later. Reptilians do not create head buzzing. That's not a sign of a reptilian attack. They create pain. They make you feel very ungrounded. They can give you anxiety attack and make your chest feel like it's pounding out, but it's not normally, no. Back of the head, that kind of thing. And they don't come back. They cannot come back. They're literally dead. Okay? They cannot come back. After we clear them, they're sent to source. All right? They're energetically recycled. So it cannot come back, but you can pick up new stuff. You can pick up new stuff very easily. Somebody said, what's in your coffee? I'm drinking Rise. It's that mushroom coffee. I'm drinking mushroom coffee with stevia in it. Somebody said that's my husband, 10 years and still can't do the psychic protection I teach him. Some people just don't learn. Some people are, there are people who don't even brush their teeth every morning. So if you can't brush your teeth in the mornings, I can imagine it'd be hard for you to remember to do this too. So that's how I do it. Every morning I get up, I brush my teeth, I do my psychic protection. Every night before bed, I do my psychic protection as I'm brushing my teeth. It's just something I added to my routine, right? Because I already have a routine. I just added to the routine to make it a better routine. And that is actually helping, because otherwise I would have forgotten. If I wasn't doing it then, I wouldn't remember to do it. So I had to add it to my already normal routine to make it easier for me. So perhaps that would help for you guys. One of the things you can do is put a Post-it note right where, like in your mirror for your bathroom, where you would go to grab your toothpaste every night, just go and grab it and see the note and say, oh yeah, I have to do that. So some people can't even make their own bed. See, this is what I say. You have to take initiative for these things. So if you add it to your normal routine, it does make it easier instead of having to create a whole new routine. Someone says scrubbing that fluoride. There is no fluoride in my toothpaste. Thank you very much. I get the fancy kind. Fancy kind without any shit in it. In fact, it's hard to find things without shit in it these days. Even shampoo and conditioner. I've been trying to find ones without SLS in it, sodium lauryl sulfate, which will literally make you go bald, and they put it in shampoo and conditioner. It's what it does, is it makes hair fall out, and they put it in shampoo and conditioner. Ugh. Probably so they can sell you hair care shit to make you grow your hair back afterward. They make your hair fall out so they can sell you Rogaine. It's pretty normal for what they do, right? I use clove tea. That's interesting. So whatever it is, just make sure that you're not putting harmful chemicals in it, because they do. They put harmful chemicals in everything these days. Can you feel when someone needs help when they comment or reach out? I think all of us need help, Anastasia. I think even I need help. Who's going to help me? Every single one of us down here on this planet needs help right now. We're all refugees going, help! Get me out of here. But seriously, though, I have noticed things are starting to get better, but many of us are also starting to lose our shit in the process. So, Jody says, which brand of mushroom coffee? I'm using Rise, that RYZE. I'm liking it. Bradley had me taste this horrible coffee. Bradley, what coffee was that? I think it was when I went to visit Bradley, I think he made me dandelion root coffee, and it was foul. It was foul tasting. I'm like, oh God, this is horrible. I'd rather drink mushrooms than dandelion. Anybody had that one? Any others? I'm honestly a big fan. Chicory root, that's another one. Any other questions for today? Can they put curses or materials in the water? I've seen them putting things in water pipes. Yeah, they put all kinds of stuff in water. It was the Nazis that did it first, putting fluoride in water. It makes people a bit more a bit like, in Afrikaans we say badonna. A bit more badonna. That's what it does to you. It's like nobody's home after a while. What is a skinwalker exactly? Y'all are asking some random questions today. It's a shapeshifter. They're real. Skinwalkers are very real. In fact, one of my favorite stories from the academy when I was in SRT training was when somebody booked a clearing for someone. They said this was a very strange, because I asked my instructor, I said, what's the strangest clearing? Like, was there ever, because it's funny, we were just talking about how the higher self will sometimes very rarely say no or not yet, right? Like in 7,000 clearings, it's only happened once that the higher self was like, no, not yet. So there was one case where my mentor, Andy, went to do a clearing on somebody that someone else booked for someone else in town. They said, this guy is very strange. There's something very odd about him. I just want to get him a clearing and see what's going on. So they went and tuned in to clear this guy, and he couldn't be cleared. The higher self said no. And they're like, what do you mean? Why did it say no? And they said, well, he's not human. And we're like, huh? And there are a couple people we can't clear. If you've been body snatched, we can't clear you. If there's somebody who's been body snatched, there's no original soul left in the body. They left, right? So it's kind of like that situation. But it wasn't a normal human. And I asked why, and they said it's a skinwalker. And I was like, seriously? You went to do a clearing on a skinwalker? And he goes, yeah, that's why the person thought he was very odd. He is. He thought he was a normal little old man that would wander around town and act very strange, but he was a skinwalker. They can transform. There are people that exist on this planet that have been existing since before the floods, and those are one of those beings. They were here before the flood even happened. There was also a guy who, what was the other weird case that we had that we couldn't clear? Can't remember. There was another beastie, though. Might have been a werewolf or something weird. I can't remember. Everything you've ever heard of is real. Everything. In fact, one of my people I've known for a long time. I don't want to say she's a friend because it's been a long time since I've talked to her. We started working together as part of a mediumship group, And in this mediumship group, we would all learn about each other's soul guides and things. Well, I found out that this girl's soul guide was a Wendigo. Anybody know what a Wendigo is? If you Google Wendigo, you'll see what I mean. Yeah, she had her gatekeeper is a Wendigo. And I was like, holy shit, really? And she goes, yeah, he looks like a really sweet little old man who kind of shuffles around. And she's like, I thought he was just a normal soul guide until one day I watched him transform. And I was like, seriously? She's like, yeah, I watched him transform from an old man into this giant lurking beast that had like a deer skull for a head. It had a pelt on, like a deer pelt as a blanket. And it had like these really long gangly arms, and oh my god, yeah. So Wendigos are real too. She had one as a soul guide, as her protector. And I asked why, and they said she was indigenous in the past life and had a strong connection to nature spirits, and Wendigos are nature spirits. They're kind of a dark nature spirit, but they're real. Everything is real. We found chupacabras in Mexico not too long ago. We were clearing a property. I forget who it was. I think it was Zach that was the one doing it. And he goes, oh, that's interesting. And I said, what? And he goes, there are creatures here I've never seen before. And I asked to describe it. And that's what he described. And I thought, oh my God, it sounds exactly like a chupacabra. And he goes, yeah, actually, chupacabra. That must be what it is. And I was like, how are they there? And he goes, they are not supposed to be here. We're going to relocate them back to the jungle. They're supposed to be in the jungle. I was like, okay, then reunite the chupacabras with their jungle. That's fantastic. You never know what you're going to find. Especially when you're dealing with the astral, because all these beings, most of them are in the astral. Tokoloshis are real. Yes, Tokoloshis. For those of you who are in South Africa, you know what a Tokoloshi is. Tokoloshis are these tiny little creatures that so African people, they will not sleep on the ground. They will not. They'll even just put 2 cinder blocks on both sides if they have to and lay a plank down and sleep on that. They will not sleep on the ground itself. No matter how poor the living circumstances are, they will not sleep on the ground. And you wonder why? Well, because they're afraid of Tokoloshis. They're afraid that these little creatures are going to get them while they're on the ground. So everybody has to sleep in some form of an elevated position. Because they will straight up believe that you'll get attacked in their sleep. So anyway, we look into this. I think it was Raquel who was doing a clearing, and she found Tokoloshis on the property. They were real. Is it true that chupacabras originated from Costa Rica? Probably, because they did say that they were sending them back to the jungles. We found them in Mexico, though, that last time. Everything is real. Have you ventured to South America? Yes, many times. You don't even want to know what we found in Peru. Especially around Machu Picchu, because Machu Picchu is an Atlantean colony. Machu Picchu was built by reptilians. Most people don't know that. But they were. Someone mentioned about dealing with beasties when kids come home from school. Do you have any suggestions for the collective on this one? Smudge the house. You can also put a little bit of rose oil in a diffuser. If somebody, like, let's say if you are a healthcare worker and you come home and you've had a really heavy day, the first thing you should do is throw your clothes in a wash with some sea salt and then have a sea salt bath or a shower and scrub down with sea salt. Sea salt is one of the most underutilized things for psychic protection out there. Someone says, what is smudging the house? This is smudging the house. You get a bundle of this, you burn it, you have somebody to catch the ashes underneath so you don't burn the shit out of yourself while you're trying to smudge, and you waft the smoke around the house. This is bundles of sage. You get different kinds. You can also find things like Palo Santo. Where's my Palo Santo? Here's one. There's a Palo Santo. Trying to think. There's other different kinds of smudge sticks, cedar and rose, lavender, whole bunch of different smudges. You don't always have to use sage. There's different kinds. I really like Palo Santo. That's my favorite thing. But keep in mind that sage is for cleansing. Palo Santo is for uplifting. So if you are going to burn something, the most important thing is burning the sage, because that releases the negative energy and cleanses the negative energy from the house. But if you are burning Palo Santo, that invites positive energy back in because it's very high vibrational. Yes, you can also use tinctures. You can use bells. You can use gongs. Yes, for those who don't know what a tincture is, I wonder if I have mine here. I thought I did. Maybe I don't. I got all kinds of toys and goodies and things that I like to bang around the house. It's in all my drawers. So anyway, there's lots of different things you can use for cleansing the house. And I highly recommend doing it at least 3 times a week, where you smudge everything. Smudge the whole house. Open cupboards, open closets, smudge under beds. What about candles? Candles, they don't, you can set the intention to light a candle and to cleanse the space with it. Especially like different colored candles have different meanings for them, different things you're kind of imbuing into the intention. Frankincense and myrrh also works. I'm a nurse. This past week I woke up with scratches on me a couple times. I don't have sharp nails enough to do that. I hope I didn't bring anything back home. Nurses and other healthcare practitioners are always bringing stuff home. So I would smudge your house, ask them all to leave. I would take some sea salt. What I like to do with sea salt is I take a big bowl of sea salt, right? And then I mix coconut oil, you can use olive oil, whatever you like to put on your skin. You mix that with the salt because that will help with, being able to kind of scrub down with it. But also it helps to keep the skin from drying out, because if you just scrub down with salt, you're going to feel very dry afterward. So mix coconut oil with sea salt into a paste and scrub down with it head to toe. Even sprinkle it in your hair. I'm not even kidding, right? Sea salt in the hair, whatever you got to do, because your hair traps a lot of negative energy too. It's your antenna. That's why I'm always messing with it and why it's always here like this, because it's an antenna. So you have to smudge, you have to cleanse. And if you don't, you're going to end up dragging all kinds of weird energy around and you're going to feel disconnected. So when you do a clearing, does the person have an opportunity to speak with you, or is it all via messaging? No, they don't. I write a report and I send it to them. That's why you give us your full name, your date of birth, and your location, so our soul guides can go back and find you. And then we write into the report what we found. So there is a lot that we find in reports that we do our best to include everything in there. So that way, like the whole time I'm listening to the guides, I'm typing, like trying to make sure everything that they tell me goes into the report. How do I book a cleanse? Through my website. It's astrallara.com. Somebody wanted to know if we're still doing clearings while I'm away. Yes. I'll still be doing some clearings on occasion, because I'm not going to walk away from doing my favorite thing for 3 weeks. No, of course not. So of course I'm going to still do clearings on occasion. I'm just not going to let it run my life. I'm going to just see when it's opportune or not. Thank you, Sharice. So I will still be doing clearings, and I also have enlisted other people to help me with these clearings. This is where a little bit of confusion has been happening, because sometimes we keep grabbing the same reports. Sometimes we keep grabbing the same client. So there are a couple people that have gotten double clearings in the last couple days. And I mean, it is what it is. I go to find a clearing to do. And then if I see it's on the list, I just do it, not knowing that somebody else got to the same clearing and did it. It's happened about 4 times in the last 2 weeks. So it's a little bit frustrating. This is the one thing that I'm still working on, because for the last 18 months to nearly 2 years, I've been doing clearings by myself with no help. No other facilitator, just me and the mediums doing clearings. So after the last couple months, I've been training people to help me with my case log. I've been training new mediums, and we've been training new facilitators. And a couple of them have already started helping me with my caseload. So if you've noticed that you've gotten a report that's not from me, That's probably because of one of my people that I chose to do, to help me out with all this stuff, to help me out with the case log. There are some people that have been booking. I've been getting between 20 and 30 bookings a day. I can get through about 10 to 20 per day on my own. So this is why I needed to ask for help. So this is why I say, like, there is a slight backlog, but we are going to be working through that. What coconut oil do you use in your salt scrubs? Just organic. Everything organic. You can also add essential oils to it too. You can add a bit of like rose essential oil to it. I like to add, I have different scrubs. I have an evening one and a morning one. The evening one has lavender in it and a few other things to kind of help with de-stress and helping you kind of like simmer down for the night. But in the morning, I have a morning scrub that is half sea salt, half coffee. So the coffee granules end up at the bottom of my coffee thing. That's what I do. I mix rise with normal coffee. So that if you add coffee granules to your scrub, you can even scrub down with that, and it really feels amazing in the morning. You get out of the shower smelling like a latte, especially if you add vanilla to it, like I did mine. I added vanilla and coffee and a few other things to my morning scrub. So I smell like a latte in the morning when I get out of the shower. But I feel like I don't even have to, I feel revitalized completely. Any particular sea salt? Mediterranean sea salt is the best. Atlantic sea salt is not the best. Atlantic and Gulf sea salt, no. Celtic or Mediterranean sea salt are best. There's one that I get on Amazon. Let me find it. I get a tub. Like, I'm not even, is it Norton's? No. Who is it? Let me just find it really quick. I don't like using Amazon unless I have to. And this one is a really good deal. Here we go. Salt. So I get the Roland sea salt. It's 27 pounds. Look at that. 27 pounds of sea salt. It's Roland extra fine sea salt, imported from Italy. So it's Mediterranean sea salt. And that one I pay $40 for. It's $44 for a giant bucket of it. And I'm not even joking. It's a whole bucket. Like, it's a whole bucket of sea salt. It's called Roland. Specialty imported sea salt. You get a whole bucket of it. Product of Italy. Yeah, so it's Mediterranean sea salt. It's really good. Going through so much sea. That's why I use a bucket. That's why I literally use a bucket. I use about a cup of sea salt every day in the bath. So you can use whatever brands you want. That's not the one I use for eating, for the record. I use the other one that if you saw. I use this one for that. And I'm still using it. It's been lasting 6 months. That's the Camargue, the French sea salt. That's the one I use for like in the kitchen. That's the fancy one. You can get a kilo of that for 30. So I use one for eating. You can also get Celtic sea salt. Celtic is really good. So I highly recommend getting a big tub of salt if you plan on using it a lot. And you can also split it. Can you? It's just called Roland sea salt. You'll find it. You can add sage essential oil. That's a good one, Margarita. Yes, sage. You can add frankincense and myrrh essential oils. The blue sea salt is the healthiest. You know, one of the highest vibrational essential oils that I found out was blue spruce. Blue spruce essential oil is fantastic. Highly recommend getting blue spruce essential oil. Smells like a Christmas tree, but it works very well for raising the frequencies. So using it in a diffuser also works really good. Somebody said, is Himalayan salt the remains of giants? No, it is not. It's the remains of ancient seas that existed here before the whole Tiamat disaster. Kim Salt will also have a Mary Magdalene vibe since it's where she ended up after fleeing Palestine. Yes, that's how I ended up getting it. I brought some salt with me back from Camargue when I went to go and visit in France. Was it 2 years ago? And I loved it so much, I've been ordering it from there. It's the best sea salt in the whole world. It's phenomenal. It's so good. That's why I use it still, because I brought some home and I ran out of it and I was like, shit. And then I went and found it online and I was like, yes. So it's a bit expensive, but it really works. It's phenomenal stuff. Yes, check out Blue Spruce. It is not cheap. But it is one of the highest vibe essential oils you can get. Katie says, when is your trip? I leave tomorrow. So I will not be. This is my last normal podcast for 3 weeks. So are those petrified statues we see, and are fallen angels here with us? Fallen angels do not turn into mountains. Angels are... These are non-physical beings. So whenever somebody says that an angel turns into something solid, I've always kind of giggled at that because they don't have anything solid. They never were. Angels are light beings. They have no physical body. So there's nothing to turn to stone. There's a lot of nonsense that gets spread around on the internet. All those people claiming that like mountains are petrified giants and things. No, that's not true. Petrified trees, yes. Petrified giants, no. Giants were never that big. They were big. We're talking they can be up to 60 foot tall in some regards. Yeah, they were originally that big, but they're not anymore. And they did not get petrified. So if I did an emergency session today, is that possible? I have not. Nobody's going to have to worry about not getting clearings for 3 weeks. Even though I might be busy, I have a whole team of people. I had to train 7 people to handle things while I'm gone. Okay. So I'm just putting that out there right now. Nobody has to worry about the backlog getting worse. Okay. We're still going to be doing clearings, and I have a whole team of people who are helping me keep up. So that's not something that anybody has to be concerned about. Even while I'm away, there will be people doing emergency clearings. Even while I'm away, people are still going to be keeping up with the backlog. People will still be checking emails. People will still be doing rechecks if we need. Everything is going to continue as normal. I'm just going to be hiding. It's going to be somebody else responding to your emails and your messages for a little while anyway. But I'm sure, I mean, I have nothing but confidence in my team. I'm sure everything will be handled just fine while I'm gone. Jessica, tell me about it. That's probably the most common email I'm getting right now is people messaging me going, Lara's going away for 3 weeks. What about my clearing? Nothing is going to get more backlogged. If anything, these guys will catch up better without me. Yes, we are still going to be working as normal. Carolyn will still be doing clearings every day. She's still doing her hypnosis sessions. She's still doing all the things. I'm the only one that's going to disappear for a little bit. I might pop onto the podcast to say hi while I'm gone for 3 weeks. I might not. We'll see. I don't know. I'm relieving myself of pressure. That's what I'm doing. That's what this whole trip is about, is releasing pressure and just giving me a break from the day in, day out bustle. Because I work 16-hour days and I need a break. I am a workaholic in that regard. Because if you think about it, right, with every clearing I do, we are one tick further down, closer towards the shift. So I've become kind of obsessed about it, where I'm just doing clearings all day, every day. If I have an extra hour, I'm like, shit, who can I squeeze into that hour? Like, I'm crazy in that regard. I'll be like, okay, I just worked 6 hours all day, but I might have an hour this evening. Let me see if I can squeeze in another medium into that hour so I can do more cases. That's how my brain works. I don't think, oh, I have an hour to myself. Maybe I should go and relax or, I don't know, paint my nails or something. No, I haven't. I haven't been doing that. I've been doing literally just cases and clearings every day, as many as I can. Because like I said, I had a case log of we had 300 cases pending. And so in the 2 weeks that we've been trying to keep up with those 300 cases, we've gotten down 100, but we've still gotten 100 more coming in. So this is why I say, like, every day that we get a little bit more caught up, we also get a little bit more behind because new bookings are coming in. So it's great that we have so much business coming in, but when I say, like, I want to make sure everything's being done properly, I want to make sure that everybody is getting the attention they deserve in regards to these clearings. So I don't want to rush things. If you guys noticed, I haven't been promoting clearings, and that's why. Because I really want to give my attention to the clients as it's needed. Can you train us to be like you and help people? Is everyone trainable? Yes, absolutely. I don't think that everyone is equipped to do this work. I think that it takes a special kind of person to do this work, personally. You're dealing with the darkest entities this planet has to offer. You're dealing with psychic attacks all the time. You're dealing with clients who are really stressed out and under attack. People who are dealing with, really bad psychic attacks, and people who are also dealing with psychosis. You're getting entities all the time. They're trying to get one over on you. You need to be spicy. Okay, so for lack of a better word, you need to be spicy to do this work. You need to have a bit of, fight to you. You can't do this work and be timid in any way, shape, or form, because the entities will use that. So if you are confident, if you are fed up with entity bullshit like I am, then chances are, you'd probably love this work. But yeah, you really do. You need to be a bit spicy to deal with this, because you've got entities that are going to test you all the time. You need to have the ability to tell those entities to fuck off every day. Carolyn says spicy, a little bit of crazy as well. Yes. How many other facilitators are currently supporting you? Will they be introduced at some point? We have dozens and dozens of people in training as we speak. We have dozens of people who are certified already from round 1, which we did a year ago nearly. So we had round 1, which was about a year ago. We had round 2, which was in November-ish. And then we're going to be doing round 3 in April. So if you are interested in joining us and seeing if you have what it takes to do this work, then you'll have your chance in April. Sean says we are bait to the enemy. Well, kinda. Yeah, we don't like using ourselves as bait, but it works. It does. Beastie bait. There are some people, though, that I have them on a list because every time I clear them, there's more reptilians. Every time. It's like fishing in a barrel. So I do have a couple clients that are on my list just because I know every single time I check them, I'm going to get a bunch of grays or a bunch of Lizzies. And sure enough, every time, without fail, every single time. Without fail, every single time. Like I said, you don't even have to make an effort. There's always a lizard there. There's always a gray there. So there are some people that have been dealing with this their whole lives. They're an easy target for entities. And when they're an easy target for entities, they are good bait for us. So just saying, you know how many lizards I got off of one person? There's just one person that's being picked on by lizards all the time. And she's kind of gotten to the point where she's used to it. She's just like, there's always lizards around. So I check, and sure enough, she's right. There are every single time. Every time we check her. Every single time we check her, there's lizards. I don't know. There's certain people they really like, and there's certain people that they don't want to leave alone. And when that happens, if you're in a disempowered mindset, or if you just don't give a shit, they come back very easily because there's always more lizards out there. There's not going to be the same one coming back, but there's going to be more because they just know that you're easy food. Do you feel different after clearing? Yes. That is how you know the clearing got everything that it should have, is that you should feel different. You should feel more energy. You should feel a stronger connection. You should feel less cloudiness in the head. There should be a lot less anxiety and stress and intrusive thoughts. So if you're tasty to the entities, this is what they do. They come after you. How can you tell when lizards are around? Generally I can tell through anxiety. You ever get that feeling of that like your chest is like you just can't really let it go? Like you have this really stressful feeling that just won't go away. That's what they do to me. They aggravate my fight or flight. It might be different for other people. I think it triggers Zoran. I think my inner Zoran gets triggered because when they're around, I have this feeling. It's like a tight chest, but it's more than that. It's like this. You guys have had an anxiety attack before, right? You got that feeling of that tightness in your chest and that feeling of it's almost like something is sitting on your chest, like there's a pressure on your chest, right? It sometimes even feels like heartburn to me. That's what a Lizzie feels like to me. So if you feel funk on your chest, it feels like it's hard to breathe. Yes, exactly. That is what they feel like. It's different depending on what entities are attached. A gray, you'll just probably feel nauseous. Grays don't give you that feeling as much. Grays are the hardest ones to recognize because they are very good at shielding their energy and you're not able to recognize them as much. Demonics I recognize from pain. Just yesterday, I'm like typing. I'm in the middle of a clearing with Carolyn. And I'm like, whoa, what was that? And she's like, something just literally whacked me in the back of the head. I felt it. As soon as it came in, I felt it come in because I felt it hit my etheric field. And then as soon as I felt it come in, I felt pain in the back of my head. And I was like, oh, you little shit. Something just hit me, didn't it? And she goes, yeah, it was. And I said, level 2? And Carolyn's like, yep, it was a level 2. I was like, I fucking knew it. I felt it hit me. And I even said to Carolyn, I was like, do you think that was like a death wish? Like, because we're sitting here sending creatures to source. Like we're literally recycling entities here. And this son of a bitch comes in, pops into my room, and then attacks me. And I'm like, you should have known the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get sent to source. Like, why would you attack the person? That's like when you see somebody, you know, like sending people to prison for something, and then you go up and punch them in the face. Like, anyway, he got sent to jail too. Carolyn was like, oh yeah, level 2 cleared. And I was like, you little shit. Like, that was really dumb, wasn't it? I think it wanted to go back to source. I think entities sometimes do attack people just because they know. I think sometimes entities may even think that, you know, they want to go back to source. So they attack people to make it easier. So if you attack the wrong person, you go sent straight to source. And they seem to know that. I missed the comments, Jess. I missed that one. Somebody said my son has heaviness on his chest and says it's difficult to breathe, but the doctors can't find anything wrong with him physically. Could it be an attachment? Abso-fucking-lutely. Yes. Anytime that you have an ailment that you can't find an answer for, yeah, big time. Especially children. Especially in regards to children, because children end up children are supposed to be sovereign most of the time. Like I said, remember, children have a naturally high vibration, so they should be protected. So if your child is sick or scared or dealing with some kind of a trauma, chances are there's an entity messing with them. Carolyn says, I think some of them have just had enough and want to go. It could be. It could be that. It's the only thing that makes sense as to why they would do something so stupid. It's like, well, if you're under attack, do they stay forever if you don't get cleared? No, people can sometimes clear themselves. It really cracks me up. Last time I went to South Africa, we were in this place called Plettenberg Bay, and there's this place called Monkeyland. We love it. We go every year. It's this big forest that has a whole lot of just monkeys roaming around doing whatever they please. So Aiden and I were walking around, and after we get through Monkeyland, he felt really weird. Like he just felt really tired and a bit like, you know, drained and didn't really want to be there. So we went home a little early, and I made sure to put him in the bath, and I just knew something was off, right? So I scrubbed Aiden head to toe, like with the sea salt scrub. I scrubbed him head to toe, put him in the bath, right? He was not happy about it either. He did not want to be in the tub, and he certainly didn't want to be scrubbed with salt. But I'm like, no, I feel like this is important. So Not even an hour later, I go to check. I'm doing clearings with one of my friends, who's an Arcturian. And I said to him, I said, can you just check Aiden? He was acting a bit funny when we got home. And he goes, he wasn't sovereign, but he is now. And I was like, so he wasn't sovereign when we got back? No. He wasn't sovereign, but he is now. And I said, well, then how? So did you clear him? And they said, no, you did. And I said, how did I clear him? And they said, when you scrubbed him down with sea salt. And I said, that was enough to clear him? And he goes, well, actually, the reason he wasn't sovereign is there was a 5-year-old little boy earthbound that was attached to him. He picked up a 5-year-old wandering around Monkeyland because the 5-year-old enjoyed monkeys and enjoyed being there. So Aiden walking around in Monkeyland, the little boy saw him attached to Aiden because he liked his energy. And then we brought him home with us. So there's like a 5-year-old dead little boy attached to my son. And I didn't know he wasn't there. So I said to Constantine, I said, how did you clear? Like, how did he get cleared? And they said, the little boy didn't like the bath. The little boy cleared himself. He disconnected. He was like, nope. As soon as you threw it, he didn't like the bath and he certainly didn't like the salt. So the little boy was like, nope. And he disconnected. So by the time I got back to Aiden, and put Aiden in bed, Aiden was already clear. I didn't have to clear him later on. So to answer, that's my long-winded way of saying, like, no, you clear entities, you clear earthbounds all the time. People do that all the time. They just don't know they're doing it. And they don't know when they pick up new stuff. So you can clear yourself in the shower if they don't like the shower. This is why people with severe mental health problems don't like taking showers. Because the entities don't want them to get clean. You can literally wash entities off of you depending on what it is. Especially those level 1s we were always talking about. Yes, we found the little boy wandering the house and we crossed him over. Yes, he was crossed. But he didn't like the bath and that really cracked me up. I was laughing for a good few minutes about that one. Like, wow, because the earthbound didn't like the bath. So he cleared himself. He was like, nope. So that can happen. People will end up cleansing things without realizing it. You jump in the ocean. Exactly. You jump in the ocean, that sea salt water will cleanse you. One time we went to Grenada. We're hanging out with Adriana on the beach. And we see Aiden. Aiden is playing in the surf, right? And he's having a really good time, just kind of having a laugh, right? And then he climbs out of the surf and he's in the sand and he's playing with the sand and everything. And I see this couple come walking up and they go and jump in the ocean. And I mean, there's people everywhere. I don't really think much of it, but they were only about 10 feet away from Aiden, right? And this big dude went into the ocean, huge guy. And I watched it happen. The guy goes into the water. He dives under the water. Not even about 10, 15 seconds later, I see Aiden. Aiden does this, and he's like, and he comes walking over to me, and he goes, Mommy, I have a really bad headache that came out of nowhere. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, I don't know. I just started out of nowhere. So I look at Adriana, and I'm like, can you ask Zach what's going on? And Zach said, there was an entity on the big guy that just jumped in the water. And as the guy jumped under the water, the entity was released from the guy. Because as he jumped under, he went into the salt water. So that cleansed the entity off of the big dude that went into the water. So what did the entity do? It jumped on Aiden, who was 10 feet away. Aiden was 10 feet away playing in the sand. And when the guy jumped in the water to swim, his entities were released and they jumped not even 10 feet away to the closest person, who was Aiden. So I asked Zach, I said, can we clear him? And he's like, yeah, we'll clear him right now. And he did. And within 10 seconds, the pain was gone. And Aiden went trotting back to the water like it was no big deal. But this whole thing happened within the course of about 60 seconds. And you could see what happened. The guy jumped in the water. His entities jumped off of him, jumped to Aiden because Aiden wasn't in the water. So this happens all the time. People don't realize when you go to places like this, you could be going anywhere. If you go in the water and you jump in the ocean, yeah, you'll temporarily release stuff. Same thing happens with your house, right? Where you'll be smudging. You'll go through your whole house smudging, right? So I've asked a couple times, how come smudging doesn't seem to work? And you know what the guides told me? They said, because sometimes they will wait outside for you to finish smudging. Sometimes they'll see you grabbing the smudge stick, and the entities and the earthbounds are like, oh no, she's smudging again. And they go and stand outside and wait for you to smudge the whole house. And then once the smoke is cleared, they'll come back in. They're cheeky like that, hey? We've seen it happen. So this is why we say it's not enough to smudge, to cleanse the space, to cleanse the negative energy of the space. This is why I say it's also good to have essential oils and Palo Santo, because not only is it cleansing, but then you're raising the vibration of the space, making it uncomfortable. I cleared a client just last night who had residual energy of a reptilian attached. Residual energy. And I said, did it jump to someone else in the house? And they said, no. And I said, so then where is it? And they said, they buggered off. They went off down the street. And I said, okay, well, then why did they leave? And they said, because she smudged the house. And I'm like, really? She got rid of the reptilians just by smudging the house? And they say, yeah, they really hate sage. Reptilians can't stand it. It makes them feel sick. So if you smudge your house, yeah, sometimes you really can chase away some of the darker entities. Even level 3s will fuck off sometimes if they feel that it's too much of a hassle. This is one of the biggest self-defenses that you can have, is being a hard, you know what I mean? Just not being an easy target. Entities are not that motivated. So if your house is very like high vibe, they're not going to bother. And it really does work, too, to annoy the shit out of them as well. I think one of my favorite things to do, especially when I'm not home, is I will blare Krishna flute music. I will be playing Krishna flute music. My neighbors must love me. I'm very peak volume, like very high volume, to cleanse out my whole house vibrationally with sound. Somebody said, how often should we do it? Whenever you feel like there's something weird with the house. Anytime things feel weird, smudge your house. How long does it last? Depends on how often you do it, how well you do it. One of these, right, I go through every 2 weeks, generally. And you can tell when I've smudged my house, because it'll go from there to like there, because you end up using quite a lot of sage when you smudge your house. I would say smudging at least 2 to 3 times a week. What sacred geometries are your favorite for protection and raising your frequency? Probably Flower of Life and the Triskelion. Triskelion is my favorite symbol, but I also like the Flower of Life, and I also like the pentagram, so all of them kind of tend to work. Do you smoke out the house and then open the windows, or do you smoke out the house with the windows open? I have had different people tell me different things. One person told me that you want to, like, I think it was Eliza. I can't remember who the medium was. Everybody has their own opinions about these things. And I don't know if I've even asked the soul guides this question to be sure. As to, one person told us that you're supposed to fumigate the whole house. Like, you burn that so thick, like so you can barely see your hand. And then you open the windows. Because then you're kind of like letting the whole house marinate in the smoke before it goes out. I don't know. I've always just opened the windows and doors and pushed everything out that way. So I prefer to keep, I also like, smoke is very, I get choked out really easily with smoke, and not in a good way. Not the good kind of smoke. So I always have my windows and doors open. And when I say I smudge those, I smudge every door, every closet, I go through the whole thing, all my cupboards, you name it. I prefer to have the windows and doors open. I set off my, that's funny, fire detector every time. Where do you get your sage from? Online. I get it from Shaman's Market. I'll show you. There's a whole bunch of different ones. This is my favorite brand. It's called Shaman's Market. So they have different ones. This is black sage, also known as mugwort. Black sage is really good. It says black sage on the bottom. This is mugwort. Different type of smudge, but it works just as well. Different type, different frequencies. And then I also have so many of these, not even kidding. This is what it looks like normally when it's brand new. So this is about 2 weeks old, maybe a little bit less. So I haven't been using it that much. I've been using a lot of Palo Santo. So this is what one of their biggest ones look like. And I highly recommend getting Palo Santo. And it's sustainably harvested and it's organic and they support a lot of indigenous communities. So that's why I always do Shaman's Market. I don't have an affiliation with them or anything, so I'm not making any money from this. I just suggest them because I love that they're fair trade and they take care of their people. Sulfur. I've had a couple people say that sulfur is really, really good for when you're dealing with demonics. So if you are dealing with demonics a lot of demonics seem to be coming in. Like I have a friend who lives next to a church. The church has a pastor that was nearly body snatched recently. I actually went and checked the pastor because they were like, there's something wrong with that pastor. And I checked him and he was nearly body snatched. His cord was hanging by a thread, literally. So that was lucky. But for some reason, every time we check her house, there's demonics in there. There's always demonics around. So yes, that in those circumstances, like let's say you have like a cemetery nearby or you have a church nearby, bells are very good in high frequency. That's why all churches used to have bells. It wasn't just because they were calling people for service, but because they were chasing entities away. Bells work very, very well for keeping away beasties. Yes, I also get Palo Santo from Shaman's Market. They have Peruvian and Ecuadorian Palo Santo on there, and they're very different. You'll notice this too. I've ordered sometimes online. So just as an example, I don't know if you can see this very well, but you get two different kinds. You see the different colors? One is lighter, one is darker. One is Peruvian, one is from Ecuador. They have different types. One is a bit more resinous. This one, the one from Ecuador, I literally could see the resin like bubbling on it. And I freaked out at first thinking I bought fake Palo Santo. But they said, no. Some types of Palo Santo, I forget how many different types of trees there are. I think there's three or four different kinds of Palo Santo trees. Each one has slightly different components to it, different resin contents and things like that. So that's why. So I highly recommend getting Palo Santo from somewhere that is a reputable source, like Shaman's Market. How do you know someone is body snatched or close to it? They act like a piece of shit. To tell you straight, I'm not going to beat around the bush with that one. When somebody's acting like a real piece of work and they're like, I'm not just calling them narcissists, right? But we're talking people that just have no empathy, no compassion, don't give a fuck about anybody except for themselves, and are generally and seem to enjoy causing problems for people. That's somebody who's been body snatched in many cases. They're more rare. I'm not saying that everybody who acts that way has been body snatched. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if you're looking to find somebody who has been, that's the kind of personality you look for. That is why they do it. The only thing to stop that from happening is getting a clearing. So any other questions? I'm staying on just a little bit longer today because, like I said, I am going away for 3 weeks. So anything that you guys wanted to discuss before I go, I'm happy to do so today. If it's not going to get me in trouble with the Facebook censors. Do you think there's any connection with beasties and ADHD? I think ADHD is like attention dialed into a higher dimension, as many of the memes were saying. I think that's actually true. I think ADHD is a sign of a higher frequency. Different perception. What advice can you give to a person for them to find out if they have implants before taking an appointment with therapists? You get implants removed for the clearing. All of our clearings remove implants. You cannot remove your own implants. It doesn't work that way. So if somebody's like, oh, I want to get rid of my implants, you can ask your soul guides to do that. But in most cases, soul guides are not trained to do that. Somebody said, how do you protect children? There's 2 classes that I am writing right now. This is part of the reason why I'm very excited that I'm going away for 3 weeks so I can actually work on my 2 classes and the book that I'm writing. I have a book that I'm working on, and I've got 2 classes I'm writing. One of the classes is how to heal the witch wound. Carolyn Mather and I are going to be teaching that class together, how to heal the witch wound. We'll be doing that probably when I get back. And then we're also going to be doing a class on psychic protection and spirituality for children. So there will be a class for kids as well. So we're going to teach children how to do psychic protection and how to use crystals. And yeah, so Aiden is going to help me teach that class. Aiden is very excited. He wants to help teach children how to do psychic protection and spiritual hygiene. So Aiden and I are going to teach that class together. He's very excited to show off all his bling. He's crazy about his favorite right now is Super 7. So he wants to talk about crystals. Where do you get your essential oils from? It depends. I just go for the organic ones, depending on the company. What would you say is the best? doTERRA, probably? I'm trying to think of what is the best company in the world for essential oils. It would probably have to be, is it doTERRA? Am I saying it wrong? But their rose essential oil is like $200. Like, it's crazy. There's a reason they charge what they charge, though. It's the best. Yes, doTERRA is expensive, but it's the best quality. So, any other questions? It'll be a normal priced class, just for the record. Be $33 for the psychic for both of those classes. That's the normal price for classes. I think I heard that doTERRA is using unclean ingredients now. See, this is the problem though with rumors. Who knows? See, this is sort of the thing, though. Anything that's really, really good, they always try to ruin it, don't they? Whenever there's a really good company that's got like organic products, and I'm like, oh, I love them. And then sure enough, they get bought out. Like Burt's Bees, for example, and all these others that claim to be doing all natural organic stuff, and then they get bought out by some multinational conglomerate company. And then all of a sudden, all their ingredients go to shit. That's not a coincidence. How is the backlog for your clearings? Right now, we're about 5 weeks backlogged. So 5 weeks right now is about average, but we are catching up. We are catching up. Yeah, I always charge $33 for my normal classes. I charge a little bit more for the certification classes and for SRT, but that's because of how much training we put into them. So I don't have the info up yet for April's class, but if you would like info about it, you can message me privately and we can share a bit of info about it. It's going to be around the first week or so of April that we'll be doing round 3 of SRT training. First, we do psychic protection and spiritual hygiene. Then we do a couple other classes. Then we go into SRT 2. What are the different types of implants, and are they ever physical? So remember I mentioned children a few minutes ago. There was a child that we recently found out about. I hope that his mom doesn't mind me mentioning this. It's pretty fucking shocking. This child had a tumor growing in their brain. And we were wondering how this tumor happened because he's a new starseed, right? He didn't have any of this as a plan. So they tuned in to find out what was going on. And the Greys, when he was very young, like within, like, I forget how old he was, like a couple months old, planted an implant in the center of his brain. And the whole purpose of the implant was to grow a tumor. That was the whole purpose. The Greys put an implant in his head, and then the implant over the course of a couple of years very slowly grew a physical Like I said, it was a physical tumor in the brain. So a non-physical object, something that's in an astral, a device in the astral, can absolutely create physical blockages and physical pain. That is their purpose. That is the purpose of implants and devices. It's not just to cause pain and disruption in the body, but to create harmful blockages in the body so energy cannot flow properly. And then as the energy isn't flowing properly, other blockages happen in the area, in the body. And that is what causes certain illnesses to form. So health problems can be created through implants. So does the clearing check for these? Yes. Especially the psychic surgery ones, because generally when we remove implants, we're just clearing the implants. But if you book a psychic surgery and we look really deeply into the organs and other areas of the body, that's how we generally tend to find these, because it's not something you would normally find. This happened a couple months ago where somebody was like, I have all these feminine issues and they didn't know why, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. So we go in and check, and there was a whole bunch of implants in her womb, like in her cervix area. And that was put there intentionally. And the doctors aren't going to find that. They're not going to have a clue. So it's just disgusting. And what the Greys do, like the reptilians create psychosis through harassment, through thought forms, through just beating you down over time. But the Greys don't do that. The Greys will destroy your body. That's what they're after. They don't go after the mind as much as they go after the physical body. So the reptilians go after your mind. They go to try and break your mind, but the Greys try and break your body. So in checking these things, like I consider Greys to be worse than reptilians. They are worse. They create more long-lasting damage than reptilians do. Yeah, reptilians can damage your mind. They can scramble your brain to the point where you're not even able to like have a coherent conversation even when you're sovereign. If you've been dealing with psychosis for years and the reptilians have really messed with your mind to the point where you're not making any sense, it's very hard to go back to normalcy even after a clearing, because you're so confused. They literally scramble your brain. So that is one of the most damaging things the reptilians do, is they damage your consciousness, right? But the Greys don't. The Greys try and damage your physical body. They try and break you physically. So they're very different. And that's one of the reasons why the fuckers are working together now too. You've got Greys and reptilians taking point. Yesterday I tuned in, right? And I asked, what's causing all this damage? And they said reptilians and Greys. Then I said, are they both there now? And they said, no, they're taking turns. And I was like, what do you mean they're taking turns? And Zach explained, no, the Greys will come in for 2 weeks, and then the Greys will leave, and the reptilians will come in for 2 weeks, and they swap. So they're not stepping on each other's toes. So they're not like, they don't have to share. They take turns. So for 2 weeks, she's getting psychologically harassed. And then for another 2 weeks, she's getting physically harassed. As you can tell, this shit pisses me off. That's why I'm fiery about it. I don't think there's anything that pisses me off more than finding out a Grey has been causing these kinds of problems for people. Because they're basically like mad scientists. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this. People are like, well, maybe they're trying to do experiments for the hybrid program. Maybe they're trying to save their race from annihilation due to their own genetic over manipulation. They've GMO'd themselves so badly, they can't even reproduce anymore. So what do? Somebody said, what do the Greys hate? Sage? No, Greys don't even have a sense of smell. Because I said, how come the Greys aren't fazed by smell? Zach said they can't even smell. I was like, okay, that makes sense. That explains a lot of things, especially the trash panda Greys, because they can't even smell themselves. They have no idea that they smell like 2-week-old garbage that's been sitting in the sun for 2 weeks fermenting. Like, that's what they smell like. And they have no idea. They don't have a soul, Jacob. No, Jacob said they don't even have a soul. No, they don't. The Greys do not have souls. They're programmed. They're clones. They're GMOs. And they're programmed to cause problems. That's it. They're not programmed to heal anything. They're not programmed to study anything. They're literally just delusional psychopaths that have, technology that they can use on people. So what gets rid of grays? Soul guides. Trained soul guides get rid of grays. If your soul guide is not trained to deal with grays, then chances are you're going to have a problem. We've been bringing through new soul guides that have been trained for certain people that are dealing with a lot of gray problems. In fact, we've even had mediums that have signed up with our training, because I've had 2 mediums that signed up for this most recent class that are already doing SRT. And I asked, well, if you're already doing your own form of SRT, why do you want to join mine? And they said, we need to join yours so we know what to do with the grays. Their guides were not trained to deal with grays. Ours are. So they had to bring in their guides to learn from our soul guides to how to remove the grays. Does SRT1 cover that? SRT1 covers everything that's in your report. So if there's anything that you want to know about what we clear, what it is, how we clear it, that sort of thing, SRT1 covers that. SRT2 is it for people who want to do this work professionally. So everybody can take SRT1. SRT1 is good for absolutely anybody, even if you don't want to do this work, because it's good to know about entities and earthbounds and cords and curses and contracts and all the shit. So if you want a good understanding of what's in your report and what we cleared and what it is and how you don't pick up new stuff, then I recommend taking SRT1. Like I said, it's for everybody. In fact, I have recordings of it up on my website. So if you don't want to wait until April to take SRT1, you can go on my website, and it's 12 hours worth of recordings that we would be sending you. 12 hours of recordings for SRT1. Like, it was a 2-day class, 6 hours each day. So it is a 12 hours of recordings that you pay the $133 for. But like I said, that's about the same as a clearing, and you get to know everything that we clear. We go through all the stuff. So if there's things in your report that you didn't really understand, I highly recommend taking the class, because then you'll understand everything that we clear better. SRT2 is for people who want to do what I do, for people who want to do this professionally, who want to do this as a career. Organite does help a little bit, because Organite helps to transmute negative energy. Almost nothing helps with the grays. Almost nothing. You can't smudge them away. They don't give a rat's ass if you play Krishna flute music. They don't really like dogs much, but even with dogs, they'll just start putting implants in the dogs too. They're little fuckers like that. They will. A friend of mine's dog was having seizures. We go and check. And sure enough, that's why her dog was having seizures. They put implants in the dog. Do you do family clearings? Yes, we do. In fact, we have a whole deal. We have a special where we offer discounted rates for families. So if you get 4 clearings, there's 2 options on there for discounted rates. Organite has to be made properly. If you don't know what Organite looks like, it's very easy to buy fakes. Fake Organite is a big problem. It's all over the internet. If it doesn't look half metal, it's not real. 50% of your Organite should be made with metal in it. So if you're looking at it and it looks pretty and it's got like glitter and stuff in it, it's not going to work. It's a fancy paperweight. It needs to have about half metal, half crystals, and it needs to be really well mixed in. I'm trying to find if I have one with me here. Do I have one? I can show you one of my Organites. Yes, I do. See, even this one is not legit, right? Because I didn't put enough metal in it. This is Organite that I made, right? So this is more for... So you see the black on the bottom? That is copper. That's why you can see the lines there. There's copper, shungite, and iron in there. So this is Organite that I made. It's not legit Organite. Why? Because it's not half metal. It needs to be half metal. This is one of the first batches I made when I was kind of getting used to it. So I'm telling you, this is one of the most important things that you could make for yourself is Organite. And it's pretty. I mean, you can have it. It does look like a paperweight. That's essentially what it's for. Because it does transmute a little bit of negative energy, but if it's not half metal, it's not going to do the job properly. So even my own Organite needs work. We're all in practice. I've been practicing making it better. My newer Organite is much better because I've been getting the ratio better. Where do you get your organite from that you trust? My friend Michelle makes great organite. Michelle House has great organite. Reinhard Stanjek makes great organite, but his is very expensive. So just to highlight my friend, where is she? Too many comments. Wikiwachi organite. If you Google that, search it on Facebook, Wikiwachi organite. Michelle makes great organite, and hers has a very good ratio to it. Michelle puts a lot of effort and love into her organite. So go ahead, Wikiwachi organite. That's a friend of ours from our community that makes it. Thank you, Ariana. So if I had 74 implants and 6 reptilians removed, most likely grays too, is 74 a high number? 74 is a standard number for somebody that's been dealing with this for years. If you think about it, right? Entities put new implants in a couple times a week. So if you have, like, let's say 75 implants, that's probably about at least 10 years worth of implants. So depending on how long you've been dealing with these attachments, if you had a clearing a few months ago and you got 75 new implants, that's different. They're really loading you up with implants then. But no, most 75 is kind of, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's kind of standard for people that have been dealing with a lot. It's when you get over 100 implants. Over 100, I would say, is a lot. Like, that's when they've really just riddled. Most people have about 30 plus implants. Even children, I've been finding, have about 15 to 20 implants in them. Like I said, they add more all the time, depending on what the implant's purpose is. Some implants are just there to cause pain. The other day, I was playing air hockey with Aiden. We went to the arcade to play air hockey because that's what he wanted to do with his day. So we went to go and play. And as I went to go and, just totally dominate him on the table, my arm just stopped working. Like, all of a sudden, my right arm, and I'm right-handed too. So I was like, shit, how am I going to kick your butt now? And I was like, what is happening here? So sure enough, I felt something. It felt like it was in the meat of my arm, like right around here. And I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. Like, that feels really weird. And then I gaslighted myself. Well, maybe you shouldn't have been carrying all that wood in from outside by yourself, or blah, 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 like just thinking I overused my arm. And I forgot about it. I completely forgot about it. 6 hours later, I sit down to do clearings. And I asked if there's any implants on me. And he said, yeah. And I said, there isn't one in, like, upper arm, is there? And he goes, yeah, there's one in your upper arm and shoulder area. It's exactly where it was. So I said, oh my God, I've been gaslighting myself all day, telling myself that, no, it's not an implant. I just overused my arm or something. No, it was an implant. It was there literally just to be sore. So it would lower my vibration. If you're in pain, your vibration goes down, right? So you have to have a clearing to get them removed. You can ask your soul guides to get rid of it, but if they don't know how, then good luck with that. Somebody said, if nothing bothers the grays, how do you get rid of them? Well, you have your gatekeeper. You have to train your gatekeeper. You have to make sure that your guide knows what to do. Not all guides know how to deal with grays. If it's a problem, you can always add it to your report and say, hey, can you ask them to bring in a soul guide that knows how to deal with grays? If you constantly are dealing with grays, like I said, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? So if you don't ask for a guide that knows how to deal with grays, you're not going to get a guide that knows how to deal with grays. You have to ask. And if you're dealing with this as a problem that's been going on for years, sometimes this is what happens. You're going to have to get your vibration back up, and you have to get into a more empowered mindset. Keep in mind, too, that a disempowered mindset is one of the biggest factors in regards to not staying sovereign. I had a client who was part of the hybrid program. So this one particular client, I cleared her probably close to 50 times. Almost every time we sat down to do clearings, there would be more grays attached to her, and they were so stubborn. And I was getting pissed about it, too. I'm like, these fuckers, like, I will check her 10 times a day if I have to. And I said to the guides, is she, is she part of this factor, or are they just obsessed with her? And they said, well, they've been using her genetic material for so long, and she does have unique DNA that they want to use. So that's why they keep coming back. And I said, well, what can we do about it? Can we smudge? Can we do this? Can we do that? No, none of that's going to work. And I said, so what can we do? And they said, you're just going to have to keep checking. You're just going to have to keep checking. So we did. We've been checking. We checked and checked and checked. And I probably sent 200, I shouldn't say the soul guides sent about 200 grays to source. And then we started to notice they would stop sending so many. Instead of sending 3 grays every time, they would send 1 gray every time. And then after a while, we would notice that they would give it a day or 2 before they sent more. They didn't want to keep losing troops. So eventually they stopped. Eventually they fucked off. Eventually, every time we checked her, she was either sovereign or only had a level 1 on her. And I thought, I wonder why. What did we do differently? Why all of a sudden have they left her alone? You know why? Because they gave up. Because they didn't want to lose another 100 troops. They didn't want to lose another 100 of their own people over one person. So remember how I told you I'm fucking stubborn. I'm not even kidding. I'm a Taurus born in the year of the ox. I am extremely stubborn to the point where if I find out that they are messing with you just because they're messing with you, if you're doing your psychic protection, if you're keeping up with your spiritual hygiene, if you are really standing in your power and doing everything right and they won't leave you alone, oh, let me tell you how much that pisses me off. Like, because I can't blame you anymore. I can't be like, hey, you're not doing your psychic protection. You're not being empowered. You're not doing this or that. That the client's doing everything right and they're still being fucked with. That triggers me. I'm like, oh, hell no. Like that, because it's no longer your fault. It's no longer something that you're doing that is adding to the equation and making it worse. And when I realize that they're just going to keep harassing you, no. But like I said, this is why if we notice you're doing everything right, that's when I'm really fighting in your corner, where I have got your fucking back. But like I said, you need to help yourself. You need to stand in your power. You need to help me help you. Otherwise, my energy is a waste. So that's why I say, don't give up hope. If you're one of those people that are constantly harassed, I will help you. I'm happy to. If I have to send 200 of those fuckers to source to get them off of you, we'll do it. Because we're not fucking around anymore. And especially with these grays, especially with what they're doing to children. So it's one thing for you to be empowered and to know your shit and to really, to know what to do in certain circumstances. And I have a couple clients who can tell now when they're under attack, who they'll message me and be like, yep, they're back again. I know it. And sure enough, they are. So why do grays tend to go after Rh negative blood types? They go after all kinds of people for all kinds of reasons. It's not just one blood type that's being harassed. It's not just one genetic lineage. It's not even just one type of starseed. They're going after everybody they can. It's an all-out war that we don't even know that we're sitting in. So even children are on the front lines of this, because technically, if you're being born on Earth right now, you're being born on the front lines. If you're being born in a hospital surrounded by grays and shit, because they're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're in every hospital. We can't even check a vet hospital without finding a bunch of grays. Do you know where they were when we went and checked the last vet hospital? Do you know where their main laboratory was set up? In the same room where they euthanize animals. That's where their little gray laboratory was in the astral. Almost every single time we check a hospital or we check like a vet hospital, that's where they are. They're in the room where they euthanize them. Why do you think that is? Because they're after the loosh. They're after the food. They're after the suffering. They enjoy the suffering. They enjoy creating more trauma. And so that's why I say, enough is enough. We're not playing these fucking games anymore. We're done. We're not playing nice anymore with any of this shit. We've had enough. And especially in regards to them harassing children. Oh, hell no. And you know what's sad? One of the most frustrating things that I've noticed too, especially in regards to some of the children that I have on my list that are being harassed by grays, their parents have no idea. Some of them have parents that are completely bewildered, that have absolutely no clue that their children are actually dealing with. The reason they ended up on my list is because a grandparent has got them there, or even a teacher. I had a teacher come to me and say, hey, there's this kid in my class who is really in a dark situation. And sure enough, we find a whole bunch of grays on them. So even in that situation, like, it was a teacher that reached out to me. And even the parents have no idea. So it's frustrating that this is what we have to deal with. But if we're going to protect our starseed children coming in, this is what we have to do. So anyway, big rant over. Don't get me going about the grays, because, oh, you think I'm mad about reptilians. These fucking grays are so much worse. Meanwhile, you got people out there telling you, oh, the bad grays have left. All the bad reptilians have left. Oh, I wish. I wish. I would rather be out of a job forever. You know, if I didn't have to do this job, I would be happy to step aside if all the grays reptilians would fuck off. I go back to being a chef happily if I didn't have to deal with this shit. But unfortunately, it's not the case. And so with all these children being harassed and all of these people being used as guinea pigs, I'm just fed up with it. I'm so done with it. So this is why I say, like, empowerment and education is one thing, but really the most important thing is just being aware. Being aware of your surroundings, being aware of what your children are talking about. If your child says they had a bad dream, don't just say, oh, well, you know, everybody has bad dreams, and brush it off. Ask them about the dream. Ask them why it was scary. Ask them if they've had the same dream before. Because they'll mess with your dream state before they mess with you physically. That's the first red flag, is when somebody is having bad dreams in the house. Children having bad dreams. Even animals could have bad dreams because they're being harassed in the astral. So the first red flag for any of this is bad dreams. Doesn't matter if you're a child or an adult. It's always bad dreams. That's what they mess with the most. They mess with your dream state. So any form of night terrors or any form of physical issues that cannot be determined by a doctor. If the doctors are like, we don't know why, that is a red flag. Bad dreams and unexplainable health issues. And this is not a rare problem. This is something we're noticing everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's just, it's despicable. And like I said, if they can damage your physical body early enough, they can ruin the rest of your plan for your life. So, but remember that fear is food. So if you guys are disempowering yourself through fear, you need to channel your inner mama bear. Okay. This is not like, oh, I'm so scared for my children. No, you got to get mad for your children. Fear is not what I'm trying to promote here, because fear is entity food. I don't tell you these things because I want you to be afraid. I'm telling you because I want you to be empowered. I want you to be recognizing the red flags and the signs. And I really want you to be paying attention to all of these little things all over. Because if you're not, if you're sitting there in fear, then you're sitting there with food. That's entity food. That only makes it worse. So no, you don't want to get scared. You want to get mad. You think my baby? You can come with my mess with my baby? Oh, hell no. That's the attitude you need, right? You want to start channeling whatever you need in order to feel empowered. If that's anger, then go for it. It's better than fear. Fear can be turned into strength, yes, but not if you're disempowered. So disempowerment is one of the biggest things that entities can exploit. So it's very, very important to purge all fear. Fear is food for entities. That is the last thing you want. All right. Any other questions before I bounce off? I can't believe I still have 170 people hanging out. I must be entertaining today with my rants about the Greys. It's nice to see you, Thomas. I rushed at something off instinct and smudged it out of my house. It hit something. I started something so bad it physically hit something while rushing away. Yes. In mama bear mode is what you need. how to stop disempowerment by recognizing when you're afraid. When you are afraid, that's when you start talking to yourself and you tell yourself, no, I have nothing to be afraid of. When I asked the soul guides, I said, when should we ever be afraid of entities? No, what was it? What was the question I asked? It wasn't like that. It was like, I forget exactly how I worded it. But I remember Zach's answer is what really stuck with me. Zach said, the only thing you should ever be afraid of is humans. The only thing to be fearful of on this whole planet is other humans. As entities, they can try and scare you. Like reptilians, for example. Reptilians cannot hurt you. They can only convince you to hurt yourself. Yeah, they can scare the shit out of you. They can pull your cup. If they have strong technology that allows them to mess with 3D, they can do things like rip your covers off your bed or something like that to scare you. They can mess around with stuff. They can't hurt you physically. They can convince you to hurt yourself, but they can't hurt you physically. Just like demonics. Demonics can make you get scared. They can give you a fear to the point where you would even have a heart attack. But that's all through fear. That's not actual physical, they can't damage you physically. That's what makes the grays the problem, right? That's why the grays are the biggest issue of all, because with their technology over time, they can start to damage you physically. They're the only ones that can. And it's their technology that allows them to do that. But it takes time in doing so. And when you do that, when that's an issue, so if you're staying on top of it and being more aware and looking for the red flags, then this isn't as big of an issue, because then you're going to start recognizing it before it becomes too big of a problem. So, like I said, anytime that you are afraid because you think there's a beastie around, as long as it's not a living, breathing human beastie, you really have no reason to be scared. They make us afraid because we're so skittish and we're paranoid about things. And, like we get creeped out, right? We've seen so many horror movies. Like the one that got me the most was Pet Sematary as a kid. I had nightmares for years after watching Pet Sematary. Every time I looked outside, I would see red eyes looking in the side at me, and I would scare me, right? I would see that because I was creating it through fear. If you create things through fear, you can literally see it in your mind's eye. So that's what entities do. They convince you to get scared. And when you get scared, you start creating scenarios in your head, making it worse. So in most cases, it's not even the beasties that are doing the damage. It's the beasties convincing the humans to damage themselves. And that's where our power lies, because once we recognize that and we realize that they can't fuck with us unless we allow ourselves to be fucked with, that's a whole nother layer of empowerment that you get to. And you're like, oh yeah, you can't touch me unless I try and do something to myself. If a negative thought comes in, it's like, imagine you're walking through London, right? And you come to London Bridge. And as you're looking over and you're walking across London Bridge, somebody tells you to jump, right? And so somebody with an empowered mindset will hear that in their head. An entity will be like, go on, jump. You want to do it. So you might look down and you might think, you're crazy. I'm not jumping. You're fucking nuts, right? Somebody with a strong sense of self, somebody with the strong love for themselves is going to hear that entity on the bridge and be like, fuck you, I'm not jumping, right? But somebody with an extremely disempowered mindset, somebody who's living in fear and depression and anxiety and is very susceptible to that influence, they might be walking the bridge and then hear the, go on, jump, you want to, from an entity. And then they look over and think, yeah, you're right. I kind of want to. That is what they do. They put thoughts in your head that you think are your own thought. And you might be thinking, you might be the person with a disempowered mindset on the bridge. And you might be thinking, well, my life does suck. The beasties could be like, well, your life does suck. You may as well do it. And you don't know that's not you saying it to yourself. You think that it's you saying that to yourself when it's not. And then we wonder why some people do jump. Some people do say, you know what, fuck it. And they jump off the bridge. That's the difference. between a disempowered mindset and an empowered mindset, because somebody who's walking that bridge who loves themselves is going to hear that and be like, fuck you. Of course not. I love myself too much to do something like that. Are you crazy? But somebody with a disempowered mindset, somebody who's been thinking negative about themselves and having these negative thought forms, it's very easy for an entity to sneak more negative thought forms in. So if you're already thinking bad about yourself, you already have negative thoughts about yourself, it's very easy for an entity to be like, oh, let me just sneak some identical thought forms in there. So instead of one self-loathing thought form that you manifested, there's like 10 more. And the entities put those in, and you didn't know that it wasn't you. You had no idea that it wasn't you putting those thoughts in your head. You had no idea that the one thought form was you and all 9 other ones are not you, because you created one for yourself. You create one self-loathing thought form. Like, let's say, I hate my life. That could be one thought form. People do that all the time. They hate their job. They hate their apartments. They hate where they live. They don't like the people in their lives. And so they think, well, I hate my life. That's one thought form. If you constantly think that, it's very easy for another entity to be like, oh yeah, she hates her life. Oh yeah, there's another 4. There's 4 more thought forms we can sneak in there. And they're all about how you hate your life. And then eventually it gets worse and worse and worse. And you don't recognize that all of these thoughts that you have in your head aren't even you. And then people get depressed, or they get angry, or they get really emotional about stuff. And then they start dealing with all these emotions and don't even know why. And then when you walk the bridge, sure enough, you're going to have an entity talking some shit. And because you have all of these negative thought forms that weren't even created by you, that you didn't even know about, you're more susceptible to that influence, to that awful suggestion. And this happens all the time. Humans are very susceptible to things that they don't know are coming from an external source. I can't tell you how many memes on a daily basis I'm seeing from people. I shared one just this morning of somebody who was talking shit to themselves and had no idea there was an entity involved. Of course there was. As soon as I saw the quote, I thought immediately, that is not her putting that thought in her head. That is an entity putting that thought in her head. But every single time people gaslight themselves, every time they get a negative thought, they blame it on the ego. The ego's whole purpose for existing is self-preservation. That is why your ego exists. It's there to help you stay safe. So if you think that ego is in the back of your mind telling you that you're a piece of shit and that you don't deserve to be here, you think that's your ego? Of course it's not. That's not self-preservation. That's not looking after numero uno, which is the whole point of the ego in the first place. That's counterproductive to the purpose of the ego. And yet everybody assumes that if something negative pops into the head, they go straight to the ego and blame the ego. So this is something that it really gets me emotional, because I have so many people all the time, every day I'm seeing it either in other people's posts or even underneath my own comments, where people are beating themselves up and saying negative things about themselves or leaving themselves in a disempowered mindset. And they have no idea that the entities are the ones putting them into that disempowered mindset. They're exploiting it and making it worse. Why do the beasties listen to our thoughts, but the soul guides don't? Well, soul guides, first of all, and this is something that I learned about the other day, soul guides don't like reading your thoughts, because keep in mind, they said it's like, what was the exact words Zach used last night? I think he called it a trash heap. He goes, if you were to visualize all the thoughts that humans have on a daily basis, it would look like a trash pile. It would be a trash heap. And about maybe 5% of it will have actual meaningful intel, important things in the trash pile. 95% of it is just shit. 90% of what we have in our heads all day long is just not things the soul guides want. They don't want to. It's like looking through a needle in a haystack, but your mind is the haystack. So they stay out of it. They don't want to be in that mess. If you want to communicate, it's like a monkey mind. Yes, exactly what Leanne just said. You know, my guides called it Grand Central Station. That's what my dad said. Exactly. Grand Central Station, all the trains are going all the times in all different directions, and you have no idea which one you know what I mean? I'm doing this all day long. I have ADD brain, and it is true. I'm like, shiny thing, shiny thing. Like, my brain is like all day long, zoom, zoom, zoom. So I can understand why my brain isn't easy to read. In fact, I even said something to my guide, Charlie, once. I was like, Charlie, you can read my mind. I don't care. And Charlie was like, no, thank you. That's how Charlie responded. I was like, I don't care. You can read my mind. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. Thank you. So no, the soul guides, they don't read your mind at all. In fact, they don't even want to try. There's too much shit going on in here. They're like, nope. In fact, the other day, I forget what it was. We were talking about somebody's mind, and they said, do you understand now why we were in quarantine? And I was like, yes, I do. Somebody's mind, I forget which client it was. It was helter skelter to the extreme. The client was just like my brain, only worse, where they were like, zoom, zoom, zoom all the time. And so that's what the soul guide said. They're like, no, they're like, we can't even get a word in there. How do you want us to read that? So no, if you want to talk to your soul guides, you have to do that with telepathy. And how do you do that with telepathy? That's not just saying, hey, come on in. That's not telepathy. Telepathy is when you sit down, you clear your mind, you call them in, and you set the intention to connect. You can do that. You set the intention, you call them in, you ask that you also validate that they're from the highest of light, always, of course. And as you see that, you can feel their energy coming in, right? That's what you want. You want to get to know their energy. You want to get more familiar with their energy through meditation. That's a very good thing to do. But if you're not in telepathy, if you're not sitting there quietly trying to tap in, they're not reading your mind. If you're just driving down the road, or, I mean, sometimes they might tune in to see what you're thinking, but most of the time, no, they stay out of your head. So you can talk to them literally as if they're standing next to you. I talk to them all the time. I even whisper. If I'm in public and I'm trying to talk to Fergus and I'm like, Fergus, can you check me, please? Like, I talk to him quietly. I whisper because I do. I don't want them to miss my thought. You know what I mean? If I'm just talking to them in my head, I don't know if they've got it or not. So this is why I say always talk to them either out loud or in meditation. They do want to connect. They do want to have a conversation with you, but so often our mind has got so much going on, they can't get a word in. In fact, I remember I was sat down with Eliza real quick after we finished a podcast. I was hanging out with Eliza, and she says, Black Elk has a message for you. And I said, what's that? And he goes, you have very strong mediumship. And I said, yes. I said, I feel like there's a but coming. But I was like, yeah. He says, but your mind is too full. The soul guides can't get information in. If your mind is too full, we can't put anything in. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So they said your mediumship, part of the reason why your mediumship is taking so long to develop is because your mind is already full. If you don't know how to clear your mind and to push negative thoughts away, or to at least just kind of own your space, if you're picking up stuff all the time, how are your soul guides going to help you to connect? How are you going to pick up things from them? So that's the one thing I'm working on most right now in regards to my mediumship, is clearing the mind and allowing myself to actually, pull in information rather than having it all rattling around in my head. All right. Well, I'm actually just about to head out, Patricia. I only stayed this long today because I'm going away for 3 weeks. This is the last official podcast for 3 weeks until I come back. I am looking forward to having a bit of a break, but I'm definitely going to miss you guys. I may pop on for a podcast. I might not. We'll see. If I feel like it, I will. If I don't feel like it, I won't. That's the best part about vacations. I can do whatever I want. So if you guys are interested in catching my podcast while I'm away, I hope you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, because the notifications are much better on YouTube. On YouTube, they let you know immediately as soon as I go live. Facebook doesn't. Facebook sometimes tells you, sometimes doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't. My YouTube channel has the exact same name as my Facebook page. It's Astral Exploration with Lara Star. So you can find it very easily. So I'm definitely going to miss you guys. There'll still be lost soul rescues and things happening while I'm away. So you'll still be able to kind of catch those recordings in the group or on Patreon. In fact, I believe there's a new one going up today. In fact, there's a cool one, I believe, on Fort Ticonderoga that is due to go up anytime now. So if you guys are on the Patreon, there is a new Lost Soul Rescue that will be going up today. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. It was wonderful hanging out with you. Thank you for spending time with me today. Always a pleasure. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit us up on Messenger or to just tag me in a comment on Facebook somewhere, and I'll try my best to keep up with questions and comments. Cool. I love you guys so much. I hope you all have a fantastic couple weeks, and I will see you guys soon. Mwah! Bye, everyone. See you in a bit.